Welcome to the Awe and Wonder podcast. In this season, we're talking to leaders and changemakers to listen to what's gone well in the field of assistive technology. What are some barriers and mindset changes that we can think about to help us move through? And what are things that just continue to maintain no matter how technology changes? So that's why we're especially excited today to have Karen Kangas join us, because she has been working in this field for a long time and has a lot of experience to share with us. Karen is an occupational therapist who's been working on seating, positioning, and mobility for quite a while. She's an assistive technology specialist. She's also an adjunct university faculty and clinical educator. She sees students and adults, and we are so excited to hear from her.
She's one of those people that you say, I don't know what she is. Is she speech? No, I don't think so. Is she OT? Maybe. Is she this? Is she that? Because you are so versatile in all areas of AT. And so it's so fun to have you on here. I'm kind of fangirling because I know Karen and I love everything about her. And she's a mind changer in the way that you think about things. So Karen, tell us a little bit more about yourself a little bit.
Well, I know people, I'd like to say, I think I look pretty good for being over 70. So I don't always tell people that right away because I think it scares young people because they're thinking you're too old to know anything. Sometimes to be wise when you're old, and other times people just think you're too old. So I just want to say I think I look pretty good for my age.
We agree.
I want to tell you, I still am working full time. So I just want to let you know that things don't change because I'm passionate about my work. So I've had a lot of friends and relatives who, my brothers are both retired, but they then go find other work. I, on the other hand, still love my work. So it's not going to change. And, I am going to be one of those, you're going to have to take the hook and drag me off the stage, at some point, people might feel. But anyway, I love being an OT. I accidentally became an OT. I really went to college to be a college professor and in philosophy. And so instead, I had a boyfriend who committed suicide. He had a psychotic break and committed suicide. And that led me to taking a year off and trying to sort stuff out about why it happened. I was eager to understand what was going on. And that could be a podcast in itself, his interesting life and ours. But anyway, yeah. I actually, I happened to run into my best friend's sister, who was a nurse, who had a friend, her best friend was an OT. And that OT had also had a boyfriend who committed suicide. Wow. So interesting, we connected just because of that. And then she started saying, you would make a perfect OT. And it turned out that I actually, when I was interviewed, when I started looking into it, and I'd already had quite a lot of college under my belt. So I was going to have to either challenge some science courses and stuff, which was not a problem. I was a pretty good student. And I had more humanities. It turned out that I didn't realize that I was chosen as the only humanities student that the OT program had ever taken.
Oh, wow.
And the dean was extremely positive. And so were two of the professors that I met. And I had no idea I was competing against 100 other applicants. And they took a risk on me. And I definitely, the whole time was definitely, had the beat of a different drummer. And the reason is at that time, we're talking about the late 60s and early 70s. I was very, very involved with women getting the women's ERA movement, women getting the right to birth control. I helped get involved with, and this was while I was in college. I was very active. I was saving my few pennies, which, trust me, were pennies at that point. That I had two younger brothers I was going to take to Canada so they wouldn't be sent to Vietnam. I had friends who went to Vietnam who were drafted and killed. There were those things. And then I got very much involved in also the development of play environments with the pre-Head Start movement. So the Head Start movement that started actually governmentally began by community roots movements. And those really started in many, many colleges where we worked with kids who needed safe play environments and how that play in terms of would affect them. And I've always been a kid person. I was the babysitter you wanted. I didn't know. I thought it was great to be a babysitter because I could get paid to play. So I just have been around children all ages all my life and, really, really loved it. And I went into OT, though, thinking that I would go more into mental health. And I did really enjoy it, but I actually enjoyed all phases of OT. And then I went, and when I first came out, I didn't find an ideal job, but I didn't mind anything because I just wanted to work. And I actually worked in adult rehab at first, and then was contacted by the university, who asked me to be a part of a pilot program where they were starting with the first infant stimulation programs through the federal government. In Pennsylvania, we were also dealing with the right to education at that time. It hadn't passed yet, but it was starting. And so that was a project. Our kids with the most complex bodies at that time were still taken away from families and put in residential facilities. And so it was going to be in a residential facility in South Philadelphia. And so I was honored that they were looking at me, but I was a nervous wreck because I still didn't think I knew enough. I wasn't afraid of the kids, but I just didn't think that I should be on my own yet. And they allowed me to then find mentors and take courses with them. So I got to have mentor with Jean Ayers and Berta Bobath and go take courses direct from them, and then find some of their best students who are their kind of proteges near me in Pennsylvania that could then offer help. Interestingly enough, although I thought I needed all that help, it actually turned out that I tried everything everybody told me, and I found none of it really worked. And so what I did is I just became the best babysitter I'd always been. And I have to tell you that means that I really got kids. And so I took these kids and treated them exactly, identically, I would if I was babysitting them, which meant that we would play, that I had to feed them, I had to help them get to sleep, I had to figure out what they were eating, I had to do all that kind of stuff. And that's really how I began. And I fell in love with all of them. And I actually constantly was in a debate to who to adopt, except that I realized if I adopted any of them, then they'd be in daycare and wouldn't be with me. So I actually became so committed. It was almost like a missionary position in the beginning. Missionary position, that sounds funny. In the beginning, in that my friends began to recognize I couldn't go home. I'd be there on the weekends. I brought the kids. My family's a great family. And so I would bring these kids, drag them home. And you have to understand, we didn't even have good car seats in those days for anybody.
Right.
I had to find ways to schlep these kids. They were, I had 15 kids under the age of 3. And then I was in an institution that had 3 floors, no elevator, and 102 individuals lived there, and only 5 of them were ambulatory. And we were supposed to be closed down every 6 months. And it wasn't long before I started being a politically savvy person, started recognizing no one really cared. And so it didn't matter how they threatened, we'd never be closed down, but no one also was going to care enough to put in an elevator. So I actually had to help the staff figure out if we had a fire drill, how would we possibly manage stuff? People weren't even taught how to carry people out or what to do, that kind of stuff. So the beginning of my career made me who I am today, but it also made me be committed to prevent that environment from being an environment anybody had to live in. To do that, I had to leave those guys, and I had to actually go through psychotherapy myself in leaving because it was so hard, but I had to in order to change it and them. And I'm happy to say that did occur, over time. But it was really a wartime experience, honestly. I still can have PTSD dreams about abandoning those children, or feeling that. But I really learned from the get-go. I stayed there 24 hours. I fed kids, dressed kids, tried to manage the whole group. And I was pretty horrified what we constantly expected as therapists, or were told in school that we were supposed to be teaching as opposed to living. And I subsequently, that's the part I wish I could give young therapists, is you do not get to boss around families. You do not get to tell them how to deal with their daily lives. You don't have any idea, especially if you've had no families yourself. And I'm here to tell you, therapists, all therapists, and I don't care what part of therapy you practice, or a teacher, you become better when you have your own children or you are exposed to children you must care for in a personal way that is not business. Because until you know the struggles of what it really takes to manage somebody overnight when you're tired, they're sick, everything, you have to pay the bills, you forgot that, you don't have it, you didn't go to the grocery store, you don't have the right food to make something, you know, all the stresses and strains, you know, make a huge difference. I wish I could give that to young therapists, because I still think that families are not held high enough in esteem
right
of what they're struggling with. I think they like to say, oh, the kid's not using their communication device because the family isn't following through, you know, or, you know, that, and there's a whole lot of that, and there's a lot of that particularly on very young families when they're grieving. Honestly, they're grieving. They didn't want to have a disabled kid. They didn't want to have a kid with disability. They feel guilty about that. They wish for something different. And yet, then I'm not going to say that they aren't open-armed or anything, but I think the thing that really has made me somewhat different is my incredible interest in mental health, since that's really why I became an OT. And yet I have not officially practiced there, but my interest in we as whole people, and especially our mental emotional sides, and how that is all our lives, how much it's important, how much we have to realize we're a part of a community, how we're never treating a kid, we're never treating a stroke patient. We're looking at someone in the midst of a complicated life that has a whole community around it. And at the same time, so when you start to put that into perspective, you then recognize that. I also have to say that I feel privileged and honored that I'm not working in an emergency room, that I am not in an acute situation. Not that I can't deal with acute situations. I'm pretty good in emergency, but I love that I don't carry the pressure of today I made a mistake and have to feel bad forever. I'm not my decision today, even if I screwed up, didn't mean that you now can't breathe, you know, or
right.
or, you know, so I love long-term issues. So I love the journey and the challenge that I deal with people over time, and particularly children, that they're going to grow and change as I will. And I will say, as a young therapist, every time I learned something new, I wanted to immediately go back and see everyone I saw before then.
Right.
Yeah.
You start to give that up as time goes on, because you see too many and realize you couldn't possibly do it anyway. But I do. That's really what's affected me. So when you had your first question of was there a particular kid, there was not a particular kid. It was a situation, like I said, of children who I can't remember a time that I wasn't joyous about children. I still, to this day, if you take me to a wedding, I'd rather hang out with the kids. I'm not. It's not that I don't enjoy social times per se, but I would rather be with my friends, you know, in a social time, meaning. It isn't that I don't like to dance or I couldn't enjoy an adult beverage or I wouldn't do that, but I have to tell you, that's never been the most exciting thing to me. It has been being with friends and just laughing, crying, and then having an adult beverage, and I have no worry that anybody has to drive. And if we felt like dancing, so what? You know, or when I'm at weddings and stuff, I love the dressing up part because that's fun. But I would rather go hang out with the children, go outside, you know, make mud pies or take off our clothes and get dirty and do something almost what people might consider a little bit naughty, instead of sitting there prissily trying to behave in a boring situation. Or with them, I'll dance, you know, so that kind of stuff. So that's really, that's kind of how I am.
I think something that you highlighted is that you're all about connection, and that whether that's with friends or kids, that's how you're making these relationships work, right? And that's what you enjoy about these long-term relationships as well. And that's how what Brenda alluded to in the beginning, is that we don't know if are you an OT, an SLP, a therapist, because you're looking at the kids holistically. And I think that's a great piece of advice as well to give to people, that to look at the person, as you said, in the space they're at right now, right? That this is part of a journey. And
unfortunately, I think it's gotten worse. I think meaning that In this day and age, one of the worst things technology has done is allowed people to believe they can find an answer in a moment, as opposed to recognizing there is no such thing as, first of all, an answer. There is not an answer, and it's not going to happen in a moment, and it is not going to be a soundbite that changes your life. And that the hard work is, first of all, living it and absolutely not even understanding yet what the question is, much less what the answer is. But that doesn't mean you're sitting around waiting for the question or the answer, that you need to be in the business of the process of life.
Yeah.
And that processing, that part of technology still irritates me to no end, because I think that consequently we regularly overestimate and underestimate the children we serve, who are not able to beat us over the head with information. I mean, a same-age child of any kid I work with is able to get their point across of any idea that they're having at any moment in time 1,000 ways. And my kids have 2 ways. And consequently, if you're not very attentive, you've missed those 2 ways. And they don't get to get away from you because they think now that you aren't paying attention, whereas another child would. So I think that people paying more attention and allowing their whole being to listen, and then allowing their training to appear literally as they need it, as opposed to it being in the forefront to be shoved onto somebody. And I don't know, when you're young and you leave school, everybody wants to feel important, and you've put a lot of hard work in, and you want to apply what you know, but you pretty quickly should know in our fields that you don't know much yet, because you have to live it, so kind of no matter where you are putting that information, it's not there. I know my sister was a teacher, a second grade teacher for 42 years. And she said, I feel like I should apologize for the first 10 years because I kept expecting the kids to look adoringly at me. And it was my job to keep them at their chairs to get adoringly looking at me. Till I had 10 years under my belt to really know what a second grader, what the whole range of second grade was like. So it took me 10 years to learn that. And all that time I was putting on these ridiculous expectations. And she goes, luckily, at least I know I wasn't mean. You know what I mean? Like, at least but I until I realized, wow, I now know what this range is. And I have a lot of skills, and kids are going to do things differently. And I need to, and all those sorts of stuff. And I think that's true. I think that comes around about 10 years. And all I want to tell you is the joy is that it continues, is that you will, I tell every student and every therapist I work with, when they tell me a kid hasn't changed, I'm like, I don't understand. Every treatment session, I need to see change. And I do. Every treatment session. And then how I'm going to look at goals over time and what our activities are going to be involved. And I'm pretty horrified that even our goals and objectives and IEPs now have become not based in development, not an understanding of time, not an understanding of what same age peers are being looked at. And so when we talk about inclusionary processes, people still are looking at that 6-year-old, but they're only functioning at a 6-month-old age. I really reject that. They're 6. They've lived 6 years. Their 6 years of experience are 6 years of experience, and their same age peers haven't had their experiences. So what we need to do is to recognize that. So I think assistive technology has led us to believe that there are quick answers, or that the technology itself is the answer, as opposed to that it is assistive. That means it's not even the activity.
Right.
The activity is the activity of life. And this is one little piece we're going to put in to help. We think we might.
Right. One thing you said when you were scared to get that job because you knew you didn't know. And that's something that I don't know that we always see. We see people coming out saying, I know. And to me, that's the first The first mindset shift is to recognize that you actually don't know. When you don't know, it doesn't mean that you're not good at your job. It actually means that I'm going to use my observational skills. I'm going to problem solve. I'm going to try to make a connection with this human being. It actually, when you admit that you don't know, you actually dig deeper and become a better therapist, as opposed to the front that I think especially SLPs who are type A kind of things want to say that they're good at something. And it's like, you don't know what you don't know yet because you've been out for a year or whatever. Like you're saying, it takes 10 years to really to recognize what you didn't know, you know?
But I will say the thing that I do, which I'm sorry to say it's happening less and less, is I believe that everyone working with a child needs to be able to handle them. So I will tell you, when I meet a new SLP, I don't care if they're a student or whatever, the first thing I'm going to do is hand them a child and walk away. And it is trial by fire, but guess what? When you're holding a kid, that's where you need to be. Everybody, you may not, I'm not expecting a teacher or paraprofessional or speech therapist to have my same OT skills or PT skills, but I am expecting them to first see a child. And if that child needs to have their diaper changed, you need to change it.
Yeah.
So that's the next thing. You need to feed a kid. You need to touch that child. You need to give them a hug. You need to help them play in doing something, and not something that you decided in advance, something that you think just might be fun that other kids are doing. So, taking a child and joining a kindergarten classroom, and you're going to be the chair, they're going to sit on your lap, and you're going to help them, paint the snowman, whatever it takes. And I find that really gives the shock treatment you need in the beginning, to be able to do that. Or then I will say, oh, I'm right here, I've got my hands full, unstrap that kid and take them out of the chair. And when they're little, no matter how wild their body is, honestly, you can handle it, because you have a whole body that you're working with. When they get older, of course, I don't do that as much, but I will engage you in helping me, in terms of doing something. And I will just act like, of course, that you can. Meaning, I'm just look at you and say, come on, I need your help. Grab the legs. I'll explain to you exactly what we're going to do. And, blah, 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 blah. And you're going to help me lift them and put them right here. And I think that really jumping in really needs to be important. And yet, I find when we're working with kids on the spectrum, people are too ready to put their hands on kids. These kids don't want your hands on them. They don't want you messing around with their face or trying to put their hand someplace. And how can you then be close to them, respect them, and model them? And the way I find with those kids is I try and make myself look like them. I actually imitate their posture next to them. So if they're sitting with their arms like this, I will sit with my arms like this. If they will be twisting or something like that, I'll pick up a pen and do the same thing. If I see them trying, I will pick up the same kind of a chewy. So that you start to recognize again, I get it. I'm joining your world. We have a place to communicate because you're a person, you're a kid. There's a reason to do this. And those kinds of ways, I think people used to think I was crazy. Not only that I would do that, because again, with young kids, when I was really with young kids, is I was a backpacker and a hiker, and I told you I had lots of kids in terms of stuff. So we didn't have front packs very much for kids, but I would take a backpack and could put it on the front. And because my kids were little, and because kids with disabilities are frequently below the 30th percentile of size, I could put a lower tone kid or a kid who was very vulnerable, medically, next to my body, and they would be the ones that would be right here, facing me. I could watch them. They would be the closest to me, that I could feel their little heartbeat. And I could put a high tone kid behind them, either facing out or towards me, and they would help hold them in the bag because that I was having a backpack. And then I could have 2 kids in the backpack, so I would have 4 kids that I could carry into the woods. Okay. Wow. And I would take kids, climb up trees. We would actually go into the water, and I'd lift them out, and they would sit in my lap, and we'd all get our bums wet, and then we had to figure out how to get dry. Well, you know, you had to have a blanket there, and you had to undress, and you had to pull things out, and, you know, figure all that kind of stuff out. And those kinds of ways, because I was so comfortable with that, and because you learn so much about an individual when you're in a real situation that has this process of, this was fun, but now we're wet. Oh, we got to dry off. Oh, I'm hungry. You know, all those kind of things people don't bring to a classroom.
Yeah.
You know, and our children don't get those experiences, and the children that they're with have had all of those experiences.
Yeah.
And our children's inexperience then is so bothers me. I want them to have real human experiences, be literally with other children close, and feel I can handle it. You know, I'm there too. You know, we're going to figure this out, and we're gonna do something that, although sounds fun, we have to get ready for it, we have to do it, and then we have to clean it up, you know, whatever it is. And I still don't see that very process-oriented part is what OT is all about anyway. But it's also what all life is all about. And I wish that we understood where we put the technology into those processes. And to me, we still don't have the technology I want. We have computers, but we have everything about just writing, really. We have writing, and we take good pictures, and we take good video. But I still don't have any technology. Even powered mobility doesn't really let my kid get into a creek. Even a powered mobility does not let my kid climb up a tree. It does not help them hang upside down. You know, it does not. Excuse me, I just need to take a sip of water.
Yeah, we'll all do that.
So I want assistive technology to grow bigger in more areas that would allow my kids to more readily participate in real activity that includes their bodies and their minds. So for instance, even just painting, even managing some chemical experiences, even cooking, there isn't any part of that people are helping them independently figure stuff out. Hitting a switch to make a blender go is not any way to cook, and it doesn't help you. The part of cooking is deciding what goes in there and putting it in the blender. You know, it's not just making the blender go. And by the way, you could live without the blender and do anything that blender did in a different way. So those are the parts still. I got so excited when we really started talking about technology that we would have walkers that could have a little motor, so the kid didn't have to push the walker, they could walk within it. That there would be a true swing that they could get in, and they could control that the swing got going and stopped. I went slower or faster. That even a rocking chair, they could make rock at a certain pace. Or that they had something, we had little lifts that I could lift myself up into the trees, and I could, in a harness, be up, you know, experience that, and then allow myself to come down. That I could be on a toilet and control the toilet with a switch, which they've had in Scandinavian countries for a long time because they use bidets. That I could have a bidet so I could I could have some privacy in the bathroom, you know, on my own. Those kind of things. So I still think when we talk about assistive technology, we like to think that it's a big deal, but it still is basically a keyboard or a keyboard-less computer is what we have. And although even our phones have become more computer-like, you know, in terms of what the management is, and I'm happy that we have cameras available, but I don't see us spending a whole lot of time with our kids really spending their own time taking a lot of video of themselves, of others. This would be something that would be huge right from the beginning. I don't see us helping kids print stuff out that are their ideas or their sentences that they can take home, or that they could draw or add a picture to and add it in terms of, again, the processes in terms of using assistive technology. So that part to me is still very, very frustrating that we haven't seen the beauty of that.
When I went to Adaptive Switch Lab, you were not there, but somebody was speaking and quoting you constantly, which is how I learned a little bit more about you. But you know, what you were saying there was that children with physical disabilities may or may not have a cognitive disability, but when they lack all the life experiences, they end up with a delay in cognitive because they haven't had the experiences to crawl over, open the cabinet, pull everything out, and make a big mess, right? And experience all of the science and the tactile, all the senses of an experience of what crawling and making a mess and getting into trouble does to your brain. And so we think about kids not getting powered mobility till they're ready, and the readiness, that whole thing, right? And then we lose the opportunity to provide independent mobility when it was developmentally appropriate, right? And so same goes with all the life experiences that you're talking about. Providing life experiences when it normally happens in development is how you maintain age appropriate cognition, not the other way around necessarily. And that's when it was like, this is not an OT domain. This is an everybody thing. In seating and positioning in the same way, right? If you're seated and positioning for a level of alertness, then we're learning. But it's like speech pathologists, we don't get any training on that. So what you're talking about is humanity. We need to care about the human, and it doesn't matter what your domain is.
Right. Well, I know one thing, if you really think of it, even so we all, it's very easy for us to recognize how important it is that a kid puts themselves under, over. You guys know that receptive language becoming expressive language means I've experienced it. So I'm getting this because I got over, I went over there. I went under, I did do that. But I just want to tell you how, let's just think even more simpler than that. I want you to tell me how many times your kids were actually able to tug on their own ear, pick their nose, rub the back of their head. Our kids don't even get that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So from the time they were little, they haven't even felt themselves, much less been able to feel you. I mean, think about how those babies grab you. That's when you started worrying about necklaces or your earrings, because they were in your kid's mouth, or in terms of what they were doing. Our kids have had none of those experiences, which were so rich in terms of what's happening. And yet we want them to, and we then somehow think that giving them a ball means they're going to understand its roundness and that that's important. And we give them a ball instead of spending time with them feeling their head. Mm-hmm. Which is just as round, and in terms of doing stuff like that. And so those are, when we start trying to then put it to the assistive technology, it's just like, I still, as much as we all text, and I'm certainly a texter as well, it still is not the same as being in person and talking.
Right.
Right.
And we text still in addition to being in person. Now there are many people who say, I like that I can text now because there are people I don't want to be with in person. But the fact of the matter is that if we would look at who texts the most, and we could all take those preteens and tweens and teens, okay? If you said that they could be with the person they were texting, they too would choose that. Mm-hmm. If they could be with them that entire time. But they're readily able to accept that. And so that's what I'm trying to say is we've used technology to give us something we can't have right at the moment, but we know what it is.
Yeah.
And our texting is not the activity. Our texting is the being with you. Yeah. That I already know what it feels like to be with you. Mm-hmm. And so I want to get part of that feeling of being with you. But with our kids, we're introducing assistive technology to them as that is what's important.
Right.
Their management of that piece of equipment is important, not that piece of equipment is going to bring them a closeness or a social relationship with somebody that they can remember or they're taking a little piece of. And that's the way I want us to always look at if you don't mind me jumping to one of your questions later on in terms of talking about education, what some of the issues are.
Yeah, please do.
As one of the issues is that never forget that all of our jobs are creating opportunities for learning, and those are activity based. Mm-hmm. And that is not technology. It is the activity. So if the activity is communication is not using an AAC device. An AAC device is helping with communication.
Yeah.
So communication has to occur. But I will say, AAC devices most of the time interfere with communication because it doesn't invite the beauty of face-to-face looking and feeling together what's happening right now in closeness. We've put something in between us and said you can only text, and to text you can't look at me. We don't expect someone texting to look at us while they're texting. But when we give someone an AAC device, we now have decided that they're supposed to stop and look at us to engage the communication partner. Nobody texting is interested in engaging the communication partner. They're engaged because they're on the receiving end of the text, but they have to wait, watch those little dots or do something until those little dots pass so that they can see what's happening.
Right.
So we've taken, once again, with the people we're trying to serve, and we've taken the equipment that has been developed, and I'm happy that we're using it for kids, but none of it was developed for children. None of it was developed to really look at how development was going to be there, because if we had AC devices that really worked well for young kids would be using them who are same age peers. Just like they want to use a phone. Okay, so there's no kid who doesn't want to grab a mobile phone. They don't exactly know what it is, but they know it's powerful and it's fun and that something's going to happen. All right. And they know people talking to it. And they might know that Nana can be on the other end or daddy or whatever, or a friend. But we haven't even created devices transparent enough that fit into an environment that makes sense for children.
I'm thinking about in schools, like you mentioned, the experiences, there's a lot of time that goes into all of these things, right? To give the kids these experiences for the SLP to get in and help do the activities and bring the students with their same age peers, fitting into the day. What would be your advice? Like how do we do?
First of all, you have to recognize anytime you're in a job, okay, and you have work requirements, you need to ask yourself the questions, where did those work requirements come from? So if we look at school, we definitely have issues of what we expect to happen in kindergarten, where we expect everybody to be at the end of the kindergarten. What are those first grade requirements? What are those second grade requirements? When you are young, you are controlled top down, maybe by the principal, although the principal actually has very little control because they're not in your classroom and they don't look over your shoulder all the time. But when you're young, you're an idiot. So you take those rules and think they're guiding you. And instead of understanding, those are some rules. Now, you've come in, and if I am a kindergarten teacher, then I have responsibilities of these kids to be here by this time, okay? And so I need to understand that I want them reading or recognizing this many words, what those are. That is not 50 goals. That is not 50 goals. How you get there is not based on you having an activity every 15 minutes. And you can have in the morning. Now, my sister was somebody who really, she also got very involved with kids who had challenging reading problems. And once again, she felt there were a lot of issues of kids who were lack of experience versus kids being labeled too early on as LD, that they weren't. They just didn't have enough experience with stuff. So she happened to be in an area that was a crossroads between a suburban area, an outskirts of an inner city area, and a rural area. So she had a wide range of children's experiences coming in. And so she believed putting that label on wasn't helpful. But then when they wanted to also integrate and include some kids with disabilities, she was like, sure, I am. But that doesn't mean you're going to drop them in my class. I want them in my class. Because I don't care if it says readings done 10:15 to 10:30, readings all day. I don't care if it says math is 10:30 to 10:45, maths all day, or you don't get second grade. So the fact of the matter is still the too many activities tells me it's an adult-driven program because there's not a richness of an activity that is bigger, that allows more time, that you can see all of the attributes within it. So if you can have an activity, someone may be focusing on it with words, someone may be focusing on math, someone may be focusing on a piece of technology, someone may be focusing on socially relating, all within that activity, but not in 10 minutes.
Right.
You can teach nothing to anybody in 10 minutes.
Right.
And so organizing a 15-minute day is an arbitrary micromanagement issue that people have fallen into. And this is one of the things that I love, that I like to use as an example. I love going into preschool programs, whether they're in daycare or any kind of a program, and see a new teacher, a new therapist. They will have, and so they may have for 2 and 3-year-olds, you may have them just half a day, and that half a day may be only 2.5 hours. So it includes a snack. It may not even include a complete meal. All right. So the kid has had to get there, and then you have to be there, and then have to go home, and you have the short period of time. People have organized over the weekend probably 50 activities, and they are done with them by 10 o'clock because they've seen them as, we're going to make a snowman. Here are these 3 things in a row. Not understood that a 2-year-old, let them go gather the materials. Okay. So, and every 2-year-old doesn't have to do this at the same time. Some of them can be helpers and can go gather. And your kids with disabilities, they need to go there too. Let's pull something off the shelf. We're going to bring it over. If you actually wanted to paint something, go get the paper. And then get that. Now we have to go, what else? Oh, we need paintbrushes. Go get the paintbrushes. Okay. Oh, we need the paints. Let's go get the paints. Okay. And some kids already will be sitting down and starting to open the paints, and some will putting their paintbrush in, and you may still be going to get that. We need to put our little bibs on, or our covers on. Oh, we have to do that. We can't open the paints till we do that. Oh, well, let's stop. We got to get those. All right. So that now, and then when you get to the painting is still going to be 2 seconds, because that's all the paint, because now they want to hang it up, and now you got to clean up. Well, the cleanup and the getting all this stuff is really more valuable than the activity of the painting. See, that doesn't come until you're in high school, that you really understand by now the painting itself has got critical pieces you've got to pay attention to. That's how long it takes. So all of that can be language, math, colors, matching, using your body, having different postural mechanisms. All of those things can go into that. But you have to understand development, and you have to have an environment that allows that. And we've taken traditional environments, and I'm sorry to say, the kindergarten now looks like 3rd grade. And preschools now look like kindergarten. That is not helpful for any child in terms of us not understanding the play aspects. But it's exactly what you did so your chemistry class in high school, the reason you could be in a chemistry lab is because you'd already been doing that whole process your whole growing up. You were expected, when you came into school, kindergartners didn't know what to do. So they would have to learn the process of, I need a desk because I need to know where I'm supposed to put my butt that's mine. I need to know that's where my lunch bag is. I need to know what books are. I can't just be open-ended, or I'll be chaotic all day. So I know those belong. How have we helped even our kids to know what's theirs, or what's expected, or what comes next? And kindergarten is really the most important thing for reading. And my sister will tell you that even to 2nd grade is in kindergarten, that people understand what comes next. It's not how many books they read.
Right.
It's how to know what comes next, how to know how to pay attention, and then and in order, and to be with others, and the most important thing is to support reading is not reading, it's listening.
And it takes collaboration, I think, with adults, right? That we're on the same page, and we know this is the actual goal.
Right. Well, and it's going to be activity based, but not 100 activities. So part of the problem has been, we have young teachers and young therapists now living under micromanagement rules that they've not been able to verbalize to those principals and those micromanagers and those parents that, by the way, this isn't education. No, we are doing all those things, but we're doing it in a way you may see as unexpected. So if I will tell you, if anybody saw me doing an activity, I would not have a parent upset about it, because they're seeing kids engaged. And so what'll happen is, and because they're seeing a rich process of engagement, no one is saying, what's the lesson? But if you teach everything as a tutorial with a predetermined outcome, and that which you're going to get 8 out of 10 things right, then the fact of the matter is you are going to feel pressure because you won't get enough activities in to do it. So I do think we have gone askew. And part of the reason we've gone askew is the scrutiny that is occurring in education has become ridiculous in terms of people knowing how to answer families and micromanaging principals or supervisors in supporting with data what they are doing, but not by you telling me how to do it. So I'm happy for you to scrutinize, but you don't get to tell me how to do it.
Right.
We need to agree on what our goals are and whether we're meeting those. And that's the only reason you need data, is you only need data to meet the goals. The data is not the how of your teaching.
Right.
So why is it okay for a kindergartner to get 3 unsatisfactories and 2 satisfactories, but we have a 25-page document,
right,
where we actually spell out the OT will pull up 4 blocks of which she will choose 3 and match them to blue. No, that's the how. That shouldn't be anywhere on paper, in my opinion.
Yeah. What you're saying though is so freeing, and I think we're seeing burnout in education because they feel so much prep is required for what you're talking about, that this 15-minute thing, right? And we were just doing a unit on the Olympics, and we were like, okay, we took all the kids. It was Winter Olympics, so we took all the kids ice skating on the ice skating rink with wheelchairs, right? And so we were like, okay, we got to fly our flags. And so we had some students with us, and they were like, okay, well, I'll make all the flags. And we're like, no, they're going to make the flags. Well, we don't have time because I'm like, no, we're going to build that in. We're going to make the laminator switch accessible. They're going to laminate their own flags. Because the actual learning is, how do we do this? What pieces do we need? And then we wonder, when they get older, well, they need help in all these areas. And it's because we've over prepped the process of problem solving and stolen that opportunity away every 15 minutes. You're right.
And we now know, for instance, if right now you were in a second grade classroom and you said, our theme is going to be the Olympics, it's not going to be for a day. It's going to be for 2 weeks. And you're going to start out by saying, what does that mean?
Right.
So the first thing you're going to say to all the kids is, a good teacher is going to say, what does that mean? Not have prepared in advance. What does the Olympics mean? Some kids may say ice skating. What if they say swimming? Well, is that in the winter? I don't know. Well, if you were swimming in the winter, and if they said, well, some people do polar ice cubes, a polar swimming, a cold wet swimming. Okay, let's write that down. I mean,
exactly.
So as they identify that, you literally, the lesson is all of it. The only thing you brought up was Olympics.
Yes.
That was it. And so from the children, you're going to gather and you're going to figure out an activity. That's why it's not pressured. You don't know yet what it's going to be. And if they want to do something and the only thing you have is construction paper and duct tape, then you have to help them figure out what they're going to do with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Exactly. And, so and that's the beauty and that's why it's so exciting. I mean, that to me is and somehow I still become concerned that how have we lost that? Now I am going to tell you, still the best teachers that I work with do that.
Yeah.
Still the best therapists I work with do that. They do not feel the pressure, because they understand the pressure is that somebody wants results on paper that measure the big goals. And so they're going to know how to do that. Yeah. But that's not telling them how to run their day, because they understand the process. And when I was a young therapist, I'll never forget, one of the first kids I worked with I actually worked with a family who had, the mom had twins and one of the kids had Down syndrome. And of course, she wanted everything to be right. And I met them, and they were 18 months old. And she said, I want them to be toilet trained, and they were boys. And I'm already like, boys, not 18 months. Well, first of all, I don't put pressure on toilet training anyway. You really wait till the kid's interested. But anyway, so I tried to give all these reasons about why we weren't ready for that. And basically she shut me down. And it wasn't until 3 months into working there that I started realizing now she wasn't kind of with me at all. She just said I came and played with the kids. She didn't really sit on. I then said, you know what, let's get back to, you wanted to do toilet training. How do you think we should start? And when she said, well, I have the potty. So we actually got out the potty, we got out the process, and I did something with her she wanted to do. And in that process, we discovered together what I had wanted her to see all along, which was the issue really wasn't potty training, although I think she felt if they would be, she could claim that as a feat. You know what I mean? Like that would, like we did something. Yeah. But going through the process, she quickly relaxed because she started to realize this little guy just wasn't there. She wasn't going to have him sit on the potty for 2.5 hours waiting for a pee-pee to come. Do you know what I mean? Like, and when she started realizing how many times she had to run him over to the potty, well, where was the snack? Where was, she had to, she had to go to the grocery store, so I started to, again, quickly understand I can start with anything you tell me you want to do, but you cannot tell me how to do it. Mm-hmm. So if a family says, I want my kid using a communication device, let's get a device. But to get that device, we're going to have to do a lot of things around it, too. And then, and that's what I think people are missing. I think we've made the how the goals.
Yeah.
We've made the how the goals, not the how the how. The hows are fluid. They change. It doesn't matter what you planned. Doesn't matter what you planned. It's going to change.
It should.
The how, but not the goal.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And pressure would be relieved. I'm not going to say our job isn't hard work. It should be hard work. I like hard work. I'm not afraid of hard work. And my students aren't afraid of hard work. I tell people that all the time. I don't know why you want everything to be easy. It's not a matter of being easy. It's a matter of being interesting.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Nobody shies away from hard unless you don't get it. See, hard meaning I'm confused. Hard meaning I'm overwhelmed. That's not hard. That's confusion. That's hard. Hard means I'm busy and I can't do this right away, but I'm sticking to it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So when you see young children first using scissors, that tongue isn't, and they're trying to get those scissors to work, and and they want it. You're not pulling those scissors away from them. They don't just go, well, it didn't work. Okay.
Right.
Not kids on the spectrum will. It didn't work. Because they still can't hold. They don't have the pressure of holding the scissors. They aren't understanding what that's going to be like. They don't know the point of where it's happening, but you'll understand that. So the thing is so I believe in hard work because it means we're using our mind and body together in something of interest to get something done. And we all need that.
And I think that's the key that you said, in something of interest, that we make sure that these activities are interesting and motivating, and then the kids want to do the work.
Well, I'm going to challenge one thing that you said right there, and that is motivating. I am horrified that motivating as a part of behavioral modification has become a part of our vocabulary. We don't do things because they're motivating. We do things, and don't let anybody tell you that you only do something because it's motivating. No. You do something because either you have to. So you have to get dressed in the morning. You don't get to go to school nude. You don't get to go to school in your pajamas, or you won't have a job for very long, or the teachers are going to call you and you have to come home. You don't brush your teeth because it's motivating. You don't wipe yourself after going to the bathroom because it's motivating. You don't even go to the bathroom because it's motivating. There are things that you have to do. And then there are things that are interesting. Interesting isn't motivating. Interesting is somehow it's captivating that causes you. But if I right now just stopped and I asked both of you, just you two, no one else listening, I just said to Sarah and Brenda, okay, I want you to tell me 2 things that hit you about what we talked about this morning. Was there anything that I said that clicked? They would not be the same things, nor could you right now predict what they were. You'd actually have to stop. And you couldn't tell me. So anytime, even I'm a teacher, I don't know what the effect is going to be. I don't know what you're going to take away from it. So it's not a matter of motivation. And interesting just means that you're joining in. So I need to make sure that that process isn't me making sure, but that it's a life interest, meaning the environment represents life. That's one of the reasons why I believe in inclusionary situations so much. No matter of adults or no group of a large group of people who are non-speaking can be very interesting. You need same age kids who are speaking and busy about the activities you're engaged in, so our kids can listen, watch, see, and know what's going to happen. Because they don't have the natural components to explore, see and listen what's going on.
We go down a rabbit hole, though. The only thing that motivates them is Elmo. And then
I don't go for the motivation of Elmo. So lose the term motivation, and when somebody says he's motivated because he likes Elmo, well, I don't even know what likes Elmo. Likes Elmo what? An Elmo puppet? He has 2 favorite videos that are Elmo. When you're saying that, or what are you saying? Oh, he sings Elmo, Elmo, Elmo. As soon as I bring out, he sees Elmo, he gets really excited. Yay. Yeah. Okay, so I now see excitement. So he's got excitement. Right. So now we're not taking Elmo to bribe him to do something else. We now know what it looks like when your kid's excited. You now know what Elmo in some situations is somehow helping his impression of whatever Elmo is doing for whatever reasons, which by the way, you don't know because he hasn't told you. You're now looking for that eye opening, that they get excited, or that their little hands shake, or that they smile. Okay, so now we need to do some other things that are going to do that. I'm not going to use Elmo actually at all. So what I wanted to say is helping people understand that I see something that when in this experience, I saw my kid excited, I saw my kid looking, I saw my kid listening, I saw my kid captivated. All right. So that doesn't mean now that is what I'm going to do everything with. Instead, it means I now know as I'm engaging in activity, what I'm looking for.
Right.
I'm looking for the big smile. I'm looking for that. And that's where we're missing stuff. So our job is not to motivate. Our job is to help you cope with the have-tos and at the same time help expand your levels of interest.
Right.
As we expand your levels of interest, we cannot determine, no one can determine what you're interested in. You can't tell me what you're interested in because I can put you in a situation that's new that could excite you or scare you or interest you or all of them or some of them. And you may even leave it saying, I hated that. I do know I've had some friends who've sent me books. I know you'd love this book. And I started and I'm like, how do I tell them? It's disgusting. I hate it. There's no way. What did they even think of me that they sent me this book? And I don't even say anything. And 6 months later, I pick up the book and I like it. So what happened when I didn't like it? Do you see what I mean? Life is so incredibly situational. And that's what makes it so interesting. So instead of us limiting someone to Elmo motivates, first of all, Elmo doesn't have anything to do with motivation. There's something about whatever Elmo was engaged in that struck the kid. Maybe it was just that he was red. Maybe it was his voice. Maybe, but it wasn't, if I just drew a picture of Elmo and just held it up, that all of a sudden the kid would start jumping around. So all I'm saying is if we would help people say when they get they're excited about what the child did. They've given that power to Elmo, believing now that Elmo has to be in everything they do. No, Elmo is just a little thing. Now, if Elmo to your kid is going to be the teddy bear that has to be there for them to go to bed, if it's going to be the binky, they have to have that particular one. Okay, that's fine. Okay, then, but that's what it is. It's not going to be all day long that you're going to have Elmo hopping around. Right. Elmo might have to take a break and sit on the side, but it rarely is that. So I find people misinterpret that. And one of the reasons they do is our kids have so little experience that when we jump on this one thing that's so incredibly obvious, we overuse it too. Instead
Yeah.
of saying, this is a clue to me getting my kid, not that my kid loves Elmo.
Right. Right. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe how quickly this hour went by. Your stories are great. Just real quick, what are your professional projects and interests coming up that people need to know about before we let you go?
Well, that was a hard one for me to say because I am truly exactly what I've been talking to you about. I live in the moment more than ever. And I do know I've been promising for years to get a book, and then I keep changing my mind because my own mind keeps changing. I don't want to put something down that encourages people to believe that's the little piece that's important. So projects for me in the future really are, I have been forced into, because of some multi-year projects I'm involved in Pennsylvania, forced into helping people really develop more professional development tools. And part of that's become, still since COVID, we're all struggling with release time. So I am making a real concerted effort to really assist those of us as teachers to have some easy ways to have access to information that is valuable about all the things we talk about. So that's my project, is how do I take some of what you guys have even asked me about today and put into situations that can make sense, that can aid in that daily classroom or that daily activity implementation. And that is, so that just is a continuation of really who I am. And I'm hoping that will happen every time I actually still set aside time to do a project. It's constantly interrupted by something. It was interrupted with my sister being diagnosed with ALS, and then that project that time that I'd set aside, I actually for a whole year became caretaking of her. I mean, life comes in too. You know what I mean? So my own projects remain, that I just continue the journey that I'm on.
Well, we're glad you are. And I think people that are listening are definitely going to want to hear more from you. They'll be excited about those projects. Aside from going to Closing the Gap or ATIA, how can people hear more from you?
On the because we've been involved in I'm involved in a multi-year project in Pennsylvania. Some of the results of those projects, the last one I was involved in, we resulted in 5 single-hour videos that were called A Closer Look at Access, which I called it that because I wanted to put it in contextual references, but it is about access to AT. They're in 5 separate hours, and you can now find them on YouTube. So if you go on YouTube, because they're now just not in Pennsylvania. So if you go on YouTube and you search Patton, Pattan, and my name, Karen Kangas, and then a closer look at access, you'll come up with 5 hours. Although they were in an order that just made sense because I taught them that way, they can be looked at totally separately or not. But they're very available. We're now working on a more in-depth module that's a professional development module as well, that probably is going to be between 12 and 15 hours, so that that will also have pre and post quizzes, so that it can have a lot of some basic stuff for a new therapist or for a family. They don't have to take the pre and post test, but can get at issues, but then can also become more involved since those 5 1-hours became so successful. So, so that project is hopefully going to be done within, let's see, it's already December. It's going to be done this spring. And then, and so it's being done so that people can literally use it as a training. You know what I mean? So they can, here we are, we have a training. I have this group, we're going to sit down, we're going to go through these 3 hours. And now we have another 3 hours, so we're going to tackle these topics. And at the same time is going to allow you to go to that. So right now but the one, was completed. So those are there. And then this one I'm hoping will be done soon. I also am thinking that probably through MinSpeak Academy, again this summer, I will be teaching several master classes.
Oh.
One of them is probably going to be on the cognitive motor load again, and I'm not sure what they are, but you can look for my name through there. Those are two right now that are, but the closer look at access, and I would love people's feedback. If they want to write me after they do that, my email address should be attached to that. And if you have questions about it or a comment or anything, please, I welcome that, and I'll be happy to do that too.
That's wonderful. We'll be sure to link that when we post this episode. And you've given us a lot to think about with giving children experiences, slowing down to take that time, and not thinking about that 15-minute chunk, looking at kids holistically and listening to families.
Well, look, I was just realizing that I didn't say one thing that I think is important. With kids on the spectrum, one of the things that people have done is they've done a lot of video modeling, which essentially is, let's say that a child freaks out brushing their teeth. So you literally video them through the whole process, and then you edit out the freak out. So they can watch themselves go into the bathroom to brush their teeth, right? That's the whole thing of it. And it's been working well. Well, I want us to do something a little bit differently for ourselves. I want us to start doing short video clips of ourselves working with kids. And your iPads are there, your phone is there. You need to do some video clips so that you can start to build a journal. This will help both of you. So if you can, the next time you're with a kid, let's look at what we did last time. And pull up the movie, and they get to see it. You can do it. You can journal with it. You can write about it. You can start to gather these. You could send it home. But more importantly, you can see yourself. To develop the richness of an activity, you need to look, again, not with just your memory of what you were doing, but you need to see it a couple different times. And we can use technology for ourselves to help them in three ways. One, it can be communication with the families. Two, it can be a lesson that can be practiced with the kid. Three, it can be a record of what we're doing. And needless to say, what it's starting to do is to demonstrate the how that's going to fit into your goals.
Thank you so much. We have to wrap up. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, it was a pleasure. Just wanted to let everybody know, I hope that any of this has been helpful to you. It's been a joy and an honor to be a part of this project. And really, if any of you have an opportunity that you want to email me with a question or concern, please feel free to do that. And just let me know that this is where you got your inspiration, so that I have an idea in my own head of putting perspective on that email itself. So thanks an awful lot.
Thanks so much, Karen.
The contents of this podcast were developed under contract with the Washington Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction, U.S. Department of Education, and administered by Central Washington University. However, those contents did not necessarily represent the policy of the OSPI and CWU, and you should not assume endorsement by the federal and state government.